He's talking about $2 billion in cuts by identifying waste, fraud, and abuse. Is that a realistic number? That's a big number.
Yeah, $2 billion isn't a big number, but $2 trillion is, Sean, and that's what we're looking at here. Look,
$2 trillion. I stand corrected.
No, I want to be very clear about the scale. I want to be very clear about the scale that we're thinking here. We're not thinking small. We're playing big here because we have a once-in-a-generation mandate right now. The American people have voted for drastic reform of the government, and our federal government is broken. It's no secret that it is a fourth branch of government, the administrative state that makes most of the rules, that creates a federal bureaucracy that's hampering our economy. So what do we want to do? We want to go in and slash and burn that bureaucracy to help Americans, stimulate the economy, and to restore self-governance again, Sean. The people we elect to run the government, they're not even the ones who run the government anymore. It's these unelected bureaucrats. Republican politicians have talked about fixing this for a long time, not with a lot of progress. So I do think it's going to take a couple of outsiders. Elon and I have built a great friendship over the last year. We're working together intensely, and we're not going to stop till we get the job done.
Welcome to the Daily Riff Show, your one-stop shop for shredding guitars, tackling the latest headlines, and proudly waving the America First banner. We're here to riff on breaking news and current events, all while dropping some unapologetic, all-right-leaning, MAGA-fueled political takes. I'm your host, John. Stick with me until the end because, spoiler alert, I'll show you how many big-name content creators are right there with us. That's right, folks, you're not alone in wanting to keep America great and those rhino Republicans in check. So hit that like button, smash the subscribe button so you can tell that algorithm we demand to be heard. Together, we'll make sure these videos keep showing up as a rally cry to do our part in keeping America First agenda front and center where it belongs. Because here's the deal. It's time these politicians stop playing games. It's time they focus on the people instead of only making moves to benefit their own selfish interests. I mean, we are the ones that pay their salaries, right? Do you know how much the U.S. government spends each year? It's hard to wrap your head around it, but here's a jaw-dropping fact. The federal budget has ballooned to $6.2 trillion. That's a staggering sum. This spending isn't sustainable, and American national debt is pushing past $33 trillion. So, what if we could cut $2 trillion? That's exactly what Elon and Vivek say they can do, and they have a plan. Stick with me because we're about to dive into the details of how these two visionaries plan to take an axe to government spending and shake up Washington, D.C. as we know it. You might be wondering, what do the CEO of SpaceX and the Republican presidential candidate have in common? Well, aside from their desire to shake up the system, they both agree that the U.S. government needs to stop spending like a drunken sailor. Elon Musk, the tech mogul who revolutionized space travel, and Vivek Ramaswamy, the biotech billionaire and rising political star, have teamed up with a bold plan to cut federal spending by a jaw-dropping $2 trillion. And if you think this is just another pipe dream, well, you might want to rethink that. Now let's take a step back and look at the current state of affairs. The federal government is like an out-of-control train barreling towards a cliff, and the brakes, well, they have been ignored for decades. Year after year, the U.S. has been running massive budget deficits, and now the national debt is sitting at over $33 trillion. To put it in perspective, that's more than the GDP of the next three largest economies combined, China, Japan, and Germany. The problem is not just the total size of the debt, it's the growing interest payments and ever-expanding bureaucratic machinery and the massive waste across numerous federal programs. Take the Pentagon, for example. The Department of Defense, which is supposed to protect the country, is sitting on a budget that nears $1 trillion, and they can't even account for where all that money goes. It's a bloated bureaucracy rife with inefficiency, and that's just one agency. Meanwhile, the IRS, NSA, NASA, and Department of Education, and yes, even PBS and NPR, those taxpayer-funded media outlets are all burning through billions in taxpayer dollars. The question is, how much longer can this go on? At some point, you run out of other people's money. That's the state of play, and why Musk and Ramaswamy's proposal couldn't come at a more urgent time. Don't believe me, hear it from Vivek himself.
Look, part of what's holding back energy dominance in this country is that administrative state. Look at the regulations coming out of the Department of Interior, the slow permitting requirements, how hard it is to open a new refinery. So I think that is the root cause of our failure as a country, is this unelected fourth branch of government. And I think they look at elected officials as these cute little puppets that come and go every little while. Not anymore. There's a new sheriff in town. Donald Trump's the president. He has mandated us for radical, drastic reform of this federal bureaucracy with the learnings of that first term. And you look, Elon's solving major problems of physics. I came from the world of biology. What we're solving here now is not a natural problem. This is a man-made problem. And when you have a man-made problem, you better darn well have a man-made solution. That's what we're bringing to the table. We're assembling the brightest minds in the country. This is the equivalent of a modern Manhattan Project to take on, I think, the major problem holding our country back. It's the federal bureaucracy. Target that cost, save the money, restore self-governance. And Sean, I think we did something pretty novel here, if I may say so. If I just want to say is this Department of Government Efficiency, it is built with an end date. We want to be done by July 4th, 2026. So for the first time in history, creating a department, creating a new government project that is designed to end when its work is complete. That's on the 250th anniversary of America's Declaration of Independence, and that's the gift we want to give this country on that birthday. But I'll give you some examples, Sean. Most federal employees right now, most Americans don't recognize this, they don't even show up to work. So if you tell people you have to affirm that you want a job, that you have to show up to work 5 days a week, how many of those employees are going to quit right out the gate? That's a question we should ask. Those are the kinds of inefficiencies, low-hanging fruit, that Democrats and Republicans or black or white Americans alike can agree on. We should not be wasting that kind of money as a federal government. And so in that sense, tackling this kind of waste, fraud, abuse, bureaucratic bloat, we're going for the stuff that's basic common sense that most Americans actually agree on. And I hope we're going to actually be able to help unite the country by eliminating waste, which is something that all Americans, regardless of partisan affiliation, can get behind. And that's how Elon and I are thinking about it.
So what exactly are Musk and Ramaswamy proposing? First off, they're aiming to tackle the defense budget. Yes, you heard that right. We all know the Pentagon is essential for national security, but do we need a $1 trillion budget? Especially when department can't even track its spending properly. Ramaswamy has gone on record saying they can't even tell you where it goes. Musk and Ramaswamy are pushing for a full audit of the defense budget, cutting down on waste and redirecting funds to more effective defense strategies, leaving the bureaucracy behind. Next up, we've got the Department of Education. Now, this one's been on the chopping block for years, especially with calls from conservatives to dismantle it altogether. Trump wanted it gone, and Ramaswamy said he's aiming for mass reductions, with the potential to eliminate entire agencies that no longer serve their original purpose. And if we're serious about cutting costs, why not take a long, hard look at the federal education budget, which eats up billions but produces mixed results? And then there's the issue of public broadcasting. Musk and Ramaswamy wrote an op-ed on the Wall Street Journal calling out the $535 million a year that goes towards funding PBS and NPR, networks that they argue are simply not aligned with the intent of Congress when they were created. Unauthorized spending, they say, and they want it gone. But that's not all. Planned Parenthood, international organizations, and the IRS are also on their radar. With Planned Parenthood, for instance, we're talking about nearly $300 million in taxpayer funds being funneled to progressive causes with little accountability. International grants, about $1.5 billion, that could be better spent on domestic issues. And the IRS, well, Musk has suggested creating a free tax filing system to simplify the process, saving billions in administrative costs. But here's where it gets really interesting. Musk and Ramaswamy aren't just focusing on your run-of-the-mill programs. They've got their sights set on something far more daring, eliminating the entire regulatory agencies. Take the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, for example. Musk tweeted recently, there are too many duplicative regulatory agencies. Delete CFPB, and he's not wrong. The government is riddled with layers of bureaucracy, each one costing taxpayers billions to maintain. But perhaps the boldest move of all, they both suggested that some of the laws holding back the government cuts, the ones that prevent the president from unilaterally stopping certain spending, are unconstitutional. If that's true, the next president could have the power to stop unnecessary spending in its tracks without waiting for Congress to act. This could be a game changer for anyone looking to take on the deep state of government bureaucracy. So to recap, Musk and Ramaswamy's $2 trillion cut isn't just about trimming the fat. It's about fundamentally rethinking how the government operates, eliminating waste and putting taxpayer dollars to better use. From slashing the Pentagon's bloated budget to eliminating regulatory agencies that serve no real purpose, their plan is bold and controversial. The implications for the U.S. economy could be massive. A more streamlined government could lead to a freer market, lower taxes, and a healthier economy. But as with any major reform, there will be resistance from all sides. Whether or not they can pull this off depends on whether Americans are ready for a government that actually serves them, not the other way around.
Of course he said. Elon Musk says he rewatched Office Space to prepare for DOGE. Of course he did.
Of course he did.
Fucking psycho.
Exactly.
God, we're so lucky that guy's around.
Exactly. So there was this moment in the Twitter takeover where Elon sends his email and he says, and the line is, what did you get done this week?
Whoa.
What did you get done this week? And in the context of Silicon Valley companies, that was a provocative statement because a lot of Silicon Valley companies take months or years to do anything. But imagine that statement being applied to the government.
Oh my God.
Right? Like the level of like accelerated time, like, okay, what are the problems? How are we going to fix them? And what have you gotten done this week?
Yeah, you think debanking upended some lives.
Yes, exactly. So yes, what have you done this week? And by the way, when Elon runs this guy, it's actually interesting. A guy just tweeted or posted or zeeted what it's like to work for Elon at his AI company, XAI. And he said Elon came in last week and he said Elon spent 18 hours at the office and in 5-minute chunks. And it was each person had a 5-minute speaking slot to explain to Elon what they were doing.
Wow.
And he did that for, 5 times whatever, right? 18 hours.
Jesus Christ.
And so think about what that meant. Every employee had an opportunity to tell the big boss what they were working on. Every employee had an opportunity to be recognized for their effort. Every employee had an opportunity to get live feedback from the big boss who had a comprehensive overview of everything as to what they should be doing.
Whoa.
And there's no place to hide. Right.
Whoa.
And think of how different it is for a company to be run that way.
Right.
Then even, again, and the Valley companies generally are quite well run by sort of business standards. And even that, like that's the level of intensity that most Valley companies aren't even close to.
Now imagine that applied to government.
To government.
Which is just...
And again, this is the kind of thing. There's no law there's no reason it can't be done. There's no law that prevents that. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't do that. It's a choice. How the government is run is a choice on the part of the executive branch and the president for how it's going to get run. And there's no reason why the government can't literally be run this way.
And here's what's crazy. The pushback against even the concept of this by leftists. So leftists defending bureaucratic bloat and big government is wild to watch.
Right. Which they really shouldn't be doing, which is a weird thing to have wedged themselves into. My hope is they'll figure out how weird this is.
Do you think it's like just an ideological thing, like the right wants this, so we oppose it?
I think the left thinks they control the government. I think 50 years ago they would have been on the other side of this issue. Like Noam Chomsky 50 years ago would have been on the other side of this. He would have viewed government power as an extension of like the state and big business intertwined. And you have these just term manufacturing of consent, where it's like government and business are conspiring against you. Yeah. And so he would have been on the other side of this. But I think today's leftists think they control the government, which in many ways they do. Well, so Washington D.C. voted 94% for Kamala. 6% for Trump.
Whoa.
Right? And so, okay, so 2 data points. That is data point number 1. Data point number 2, 4 of the 10 wealthiest counties in the country are suburbs of Washington, D.C.
Wow. Lobbyists.
Lobbyists.
Yeah.
They call Beltway bandits.
Yeah. That's a crazy job.
Is the actual term. And these aren't people working for the government. These are people making money from the government. Right? These are people sponging off the government. And so, like, yeah, for to the extent that Democrats have wedged themselves into a position where they're defending this, they really shouldn't. They should really rethink this. They should figure out how to get back to the correct mentality on this that they used to have.
No.
So, what do you think? Can Musk and Ramaswamy really pull off $2 trillion in cuts? Where should the government slash spending? Drop your thoughts in the comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to tune in next time when we dive deeper into the future of fiscal policy and what's next for America's financial future. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay free. I'm John, this is the Daily Riff, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace!